We've got a full agenda. Hey, if y'all are gonna talk, please step outside. We gotta get going here. Senator Hickman, if you would do an invocation for us.
Number 6. There we go. Our Heavenly Father, thank you for this day, Lord, and thank you that you have taken parts of our day, Lord, and allowed us to honor you. And Lord, we just ask you for your wisdom and your blessings and your courage through our meeting today. Please help us represent the great people of Georgia. In your son's name I pray. Amen.
Thank you. We will try to go as quickly as we can and see what we can cover. We've got lots of bills. The first bill we were going to hear today was House Bill 230. It's been prepared with a $250 million cap as per the recommendation. We said we wouldn't do testimony today, that it would be available for an up or down vote. There may be more work on this down the line, but right now that's what we've got. So we're working off of LC 432803S. I think, is that what everybody's got? And what Legislative Council has? Okay. So the change in it, the change in it was to put, it doesn't have a time limit, but it's got a $250 million limit, as was discussed the other day. So, it's on, that's on line 93 in the bill. This is 230, the Augusta C-Splost half-penny, as per what was agreed on in the meeting the other day. Any questions from the committee? Senator Estevez?
I have a motion at the appropriate time.
All right, we'll go ahead. I'm not hearing any discussion.
I'd like to move due pass.
We've got a motion to pass. Is there a second? We've got a second by Senator Hickman. Any other discussion? All those in favor of this? This is 230, the half-penny C-Splost for City of Augusta with a cap on it. All those in favor, raise your hand. All right, all those opposed, raise your hand. Looks like 2 opposed. Motion carries. You can continue the process. All right, is Representative Williamson here? Don't see Representative Williamson. Okay, if you want to go ahead with your other bill. I was trying to get him done, but you've got House Bill 308, and that's LC 432609. Actually, I need to, excuse me, I need to do one other first. He got my folder out of order. I need to do the projects of regional significance, and there's a reason for that. But I guess there you are. Let's projects of regional significance. No, I'm not sure that's it. Let me look. Turn the mic back on here. House Bill 408, if you'd give us your LC number and present the bill.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I've got House Bill 408, numbers LC 500497. This bill simply extends the projects of regional significance, sunset on the waiving sales tax on construction materials going into projects of regional significance. It extends it through December 31st of 2026, which coincides with the governor's term of office.
All right. What's it? Yeah, anything else you need to add or don't add? I know, Senator Tillery.
Project of regional significance.
So I don't have the exact details on that, but for example, I think 1% of the deals that Georgia Department of Economic Development have done in the last few years, I think they've done like 900 deals, and there's been 9 projects of regional significance. If you, as I recall, they have to be very large, very impactful for job creation in the state. Let me see if I can help you out. Due to privacy concerns, we don't know exactly which ones we can guess, which ones would qualify. Looking at old notes here. It is used as it's a discretionary sales and tax use exemption that the Georgia Department of Economic Development, working with the governor's office, decides to use as a job creation tool.
I guess, Mr. Chairman, if I were lodging my concern would be if I don't know the definition of what constitutes a project of regional significance.
I've got it right here.
Okay.
Apologize. So, competitive project of regional significance means the location or expansion or some or all of a business enterprise's operation in this state where the Commissioner of Economic Development determines that the project would have a significant regional impact. Business enterprise means any business or the headquarters of any such business which is engaged in manufacturing, including but not limited to the manufacturing of alternative energy products for use in solar, wind, battery, bioenergy, biofuel, and electric vehicle enterprises, warehousing and distribution, processing, telecommunications, broadcasting, research and development industries, biomedical manufacturing, and services for the elderly and persons with disabilities. Such terms shall not include retail businesses. That's the definition in Georgia Code.
Thank you.
These are always tough because it's, it's a competitive nature. I've talked with leadership here at the lieutenant governor level, and I think he was comfortable with the way the communication was going to be on it. It does have a sunset on it, as he stated, I think there's been 9 in recent years. I think 18 in history of these have been done. It's not a everyday thing, but we have had a few lately, obviously. Senator Estevez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just curious, over those 18 projects, do we know what the impact has been?
I don't have that data. Nobody's asked me for it, but certainly I can get it for you.
Okay.
There are some criteria, if you, Chair, would let me state this. The project must be regionally significant, and a determination of regional significance is at the discretion of the Commissioner of Economic Development and based on the factors, including but not limited to, and is the project's geographic location within the state of Georgia, the number of jobs created by the project, the amount of private investment created by the project, the average wage of the jobs created by the project, and the Commissioner's determination that the project would have a significant regional impact and any other factors considered important. Obviously, you might guess what some of the big projects that are announced in Georgia may have or may not have been qualified for this sales tax exemption on the construction materials. But it's one of those things that if that's what it takes to get it there, we're not collecting the sales. Construction materials are not being purchased unless the project goes in. And if that's the difference maker getting to the project, and then you have all these jobs created, and then the long-term ad valorem property taxes on top of that, it's just, do you keep it a cornfield, or do you help figure out a way to stimulate a project that provides high-paying jobs for Georgians?
Thank you. No, the senator from the 6th. raised a question that I was wondering the answer to in a slightly reverse fashion. He asked do we know the economic impact of those 18 facilities? Do we know the cost of the exemption for those 18 facilities? That's what you meant? Oh.
And again, it's the cost that is, I don't know how to state it any better than I just did. So there's really no cost to the state if this economic activity is not gonna happen, absent that being one of the tools used to land a project of regional significance, a huge, huge job-creating opportunity. Otherwise, it just stays farmland, which is not bad. Just whether or not you want to use it as, it's a significant economic development tool that's proven useful 18 times in Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one question. Representative Williamson, you know, if there's, I understand what you're trying to
Sure.
do. It makes sense. I hear what you're saying, but is there any mechanism to look back afterwards on these projects and measure what the money that we did not get in sales taxes as opposed to the benefit the state got? And if there isn't, should there be?
That's a great question. To the best of my knowledge, the only people who would be privy to that private information would be the Georgia Department of Economic Development, because the criteria, each one of these projects, as you might suspect, there are qualifying hurdles that the companies that enjoy the advantages we give them using tools like this, they have to prove the Georgia Department of Revenue. The Georgia Department of Revenue is monitoring whether or not they're actually fulfilling their end of the contractual obligations in order to enjoy business incentives or tax incentives to bring their project to the state of Georgia.
Okay.
I do have a question. Can this tax exemption, is it bundled with other exemptions and incentives?
It
When
can be, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Just a brief question. Were you saying that the assessment remains confidential with the department?
The contractual terms remain, you're dealing with the taxpayer or future taxpayer at that point, and is the best of my understanding is that it's confidential. That you don't.
But the outcomes, the assessment, whatever measures we should be putting in place to assess.
Well, again, that's a responsibility of the Georgia Department of Economic Development when they grant these tools, and it is audited by the Department of Revenue. The Department of Revenue is aware of the targets and the jobs created. They're auditing it, making sure that they take as I understand it, somebody from the department might be here to just confirm or that I'm explaining it correctly, that they don't get some of the, they have to perform as agreed, or there's a clawback. That's my understanding.
But that's not in his language.
Or my mic's not on. I agree, these are tough issues. The state is the #1 place to do business. We've done a really good job of bringing people in, and our revenue has grown in Georgia. So that's not an exact measurement, but it tells us some things. And also, we will be having a major study on all of these, as everyone knows, starting in May to December. And all of this is on the table to look at and look back and look at our rules. But it's the same, we're doing the same thing we've been doing for years. This is no change. And I think it's been pretty successful. Senator Tillery.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, I'm not trying to ask you questions that are pointed, but you mentioned clawbacks. How would someone claw back sales tax exemption?
Well, that's a good point. The I'm not sure about that part of it, but I know that I would assume, again, that there are, and I told you, that they could use other economic development tools on the number of jobs created, tax, income tax credits. I know for a fact that those are being audited, and I don't know if there's actually a clawback mechanism for the sales tax on the construction materials, although there might be. Is anybody from the Department of Revenue in here? Austin, do you know an answer to that?
I believe there is a clawback mechanism because this is essentially a contract with the state.
On the sales taxes as well?
And we can get more.
It's a good question. I don't have the.
Yeah.
All right, Senator
Might be something
Avatarte.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One question I had was, if there are a limited number of projects, I mean, do we know, and I don't know if this goes back to the whole secrecy thing, but what is the impact geographically in the state? Whether, is there a greater beneficiary to South Georgia versus West Georgia versus Northeast Georgia? Just in terms of the overall dynamic that this has had in the state, I'm just out of curiosity.
Mhm. I don't have that information, but my feeling is that it's been spread out in a lot of places. If you look at where
Okay,
major projects have gone,
thank you.
yeah. Any other questions of the committee? I guess I'll entertain a motion now if somebody's ready to make a motion. Okay, all right. Do we have a motion? Okay, we've got a motion by Senator Hickman for the Governor's Initiative here. I think you're number 6, aren't you? Second. Any other discussion? I guess all in favor, raise your hand. I guess keep them raised up there and make sure I got a good count. Okay, 7-4 against. Did you vote either way, Senator Estevez? I didn't see you. Okay. So it was 9-4 and 3 against. Okay. All right, motion carries. And you've got one more bill.
Yes, sir.
I
Did
got
you
your
want to
sponsor
present?
down on that, so we're good. But go ahead with the next one.
Yes, sir.
This one, he brought to us last year. He apparently didn't perfect his language,
No.
so he's back again. He'll claim that's different, but
So we did this, the General Assembly passed House Bill 149 that allows pass-through entities to legally and with the blessing of the IRS, allow our what's commonly referred to as pass-through entity businesses, and think S-corps, and keep it simple, just think S-corps and multi-member LLCs, like partnerships.
yes, the next.
Allows them to pay state income taxes at the entity level, thereby reducing their adjusted gross income that hits the personal returns and lowers your federal income tax liability by whatever your bracket is. So if you pay $1 worth of state income taxes at your entity level, and you have a 30% federal tax bracket, you've saved 30 cents in taxes that would otherwise be due and payable to the federal government. But again, this has been approved by the IRS, and it's most people are familiar with the acronym, the SALT cap, which is state and local taxes limitation on individual taxpayer's income tax return is capped at $10,000. And this is a way for the majority of small businesses in Georgia are organized typically or the vast majority of them are organized as pass-through entities. This bill clarifies the fact, the original bill said that you had to be eligible to be a stockholder in the S-corp, or whatever kind of entities you do, but it boxed out certain types of arrangements. For example, you could have an LLC. I know I'm digging in the weeds here, but this is what it's doing. You could have an LLC with 10 members, 9 of whom have their their membership interests in their personal name. The 10th might be a professional corporation. You can think of a lot of different businesses as they grow and merge. It could be any kind of company you can think of, but let's say it's accountants, and the 8 of them or 9 of them members of the firm wants to partner with a firm that they have a professional corporation for a variety of reasons, and they let that part of that professional corporation be a member. Well, this bill would allow that structure because technically a professional corporation cannot be a shareholder in an S corporation. C Corp can't be a shareholder in an S corporation, nor can a professional corporation. So it just takes off that kind of restriction. What's very important to remind everybody is every cent is still flowing to the state of Georgia, and actually it's flowing much more quickly because it's the taxes are typically being paid in the tax year that's being that applies. For example, 2022 taxes were in the operating year, calendar year of 2022. Businesses were taking advantage of this bill we passed. Actually, it was 2 years ago, and the state of Georgia's getting the income off of it. Otherwise, they'd have to wait till April 15th of the following year to begin to start getting that when the K-1s hit the individual returns, if I'm making sense. So it speeds up the cash flow of the taxes to the state. That rather than having those 10 members file, they're still filing their 10 individual income tax returns, but all that tax, the state tax, had been collected at the entity level and received by the state of Georgia Department of Revenue much more quickly, if I'm making sense.
Let me step in there. I know I've had discussions with the Department of Revenue, and I think you guys are good with this as it is. It's typical the way we do business. So, try to help you out a little bit there. Senator Albers.
I wanted to thank Chairman Williamson for working on this. I know you've been doing this for a few years now, and this is very meaningful to our small businesses and then what trickles down to our families. So thank you for your effort. At the appropriate time, I'd like to make a motion to pass.
Okay, I've got one other question here, Senator Anavatarte.
Yeah, I was just basically going to reiterate what Senator Albers said. Chairman Williamson, this is a great bill, and thank you for bringing it here. Let's vote.
All right, well, Senator Albers, I think we're ready for a motion, seeing no other questions.
I would move to pass, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Got a second? Any other discussion by any members? All in favor, raise your hand. Looks like unanimous. All right, you're out of
Thank you,
here.
Mr. Chairman, members of the
Don't
committee, I
bring it
appreciate
back next year, okay?
Yes, sir.
Representative Williamson, who's your sponsor on this?
I hadn't asked anybody. Would you share it for me?
Sure, you might want your guy that made the motion to carry it for you too. Either way, we'll,
Whatever you choose. Yeah. It would be my honor.
all right, I know you got one more, Representative Newton, but I know Representative Scoggins is holding somebody up, and I bumped him already a couple of times. So let me get to his, and that's gonna be House Bill 290.
Yes, sir. LC 432533. This is a bill that will amend Title 48 of the Georgia Tax Code, and it's relating to municipality taxation and is amending and relating to the county tax commissioners contracting, assessing, and collecting of municipal taxes. Municipality may collect with contract with the tax commissioners of said county to collect municipal court taxes, municipal property taxes. The contract is a three-party contract. It must be agreed to with the municipality, the tax commissioner, and the county governing authority. The contractual service allowed under this code section will be capped at 50% of whatever the minimum salary is of the tax commissioner, and this would become effective upon the governor's signature or the expiration of a current contract the tax commissioner may be in. And that's pretty much it. It has the approval of the Georgia Association of Tax Commissioners. ACCG is supporting the bill. Georgia Municipal Association is also supporting the bill. And that's pretty much it, Mr. Chairman.
The tax commissioners group, you might have said that, but
The
I think
Gato, yes, sir.
they were all, this was kind of a compromise they worked out. Senator Beach.
Can you, good to see you, Representative. Can you tell me why you struck all the lines from 49 through, basically through 97? Why'd you strike this language? What was the reasoning behind that?
Originally, this bill only applied to counties that were less than 50,000. And that language was put in there 2 years ago, I believe it was. This same bill came out. It was 1280, I think, last year. And it kind of ran out of time at the end. That's why it didn't get over the hump. But it's the same bill that passed out of the House and got over to the Senate.
Well, Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment? This bill is targeted at my tax commissioner in Fulton County, and he makes a lot of money. But when he came in office, our tax collection rate was about 74%.
Right.
It's now 99%. He's got people paying their taxes. And,
Well-
and I like that. I like people paying their taxes.
Right.
And if he gets rewarded for it, so be it. So at the proper time, I'm going to make an amendment, Mr. Chairman.
All right, well, we'll have some more discussion now. I know we've got a lot of counties at 99%
Yes,
on
sir.
this. What this does is they can still get fees up to 50% of their base salary.
Yes.
But the county commission, since this is county money, it has to be a part of those negotiations as well.
Right,
Is
it's a
that
three-party agreement between the county commissioners.
Right,
the
so it
tax
doesn't,
commissioners
it doesn't
and
mean
stuff.
they don't get any fees, but it does have an amount that it limits it to.
Yes, sir.
All right, Senator Albers, I believe you were next.
Hang on. Yeah, I got 432790S like Senator Orrock. Is that what you have?
Yeah, the one we should be working on is LC 432790S.
Okay.
That's it.
I didn't get that one when I came.
We gave it to you earlier, didn't we?
This is not it.
I think you're getting a
Okay.
copy now.
Okay.
Thank you,
All right.
Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. Senator Beach and I are going to disagree with this because he's my tax commissioner as well, and we've got most tax commissioners in the state doing their job, getting paid for it, and getting 99% tax collection, and we shouldn't be overcompensating everybody for just doing their jobs. So I think this is actually 50% is too high, but it's much better than we are now. So I appreciate you bringing this forward, Representative Scoggins.
Thank you.
Senator Estevez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question about, do we know the typical contract length for these types of agreements?
No, sir, it's always been a three-party agreement between the county commissioner or commissioners, the tax commissioner and the municipality, which would be the city council and the mayor. They all have to agree on a set fee that each tax commissioner would charge a municipality for each parcel that they collect a tax bill from.
Okay. And then the idea behind using the expiration of the present contract year versus the end of the contract?
It would expire at the end of the current contract. There can only be 4-year terms on the contract if it's a newly elected tax commissioner, because at the end of that 4-year term, it could be a new tax commissioner. So that contract has to expire at the end of that term of that tax commissioner.
So, okay. Quick comment. Just
Go ahead.
if these contracts have already been negotiated, how common? Or my thought is, we wait until the end of that contract versus interrupting a contract.
It would be at the end of that contract whenever it expires. That's what's in the bill on the last page. Under section 2 on line 105, shall become effective upon the expiration of the present contract. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, the way I read that is expiration of the present contract year.
Right. It could be year to year. It's according to whatever contract they agree with the county. It could be year to year, Could be for a 4-year term, it could be for 2 years. It's just whatever contract they reach among that three parties there. They can agree on year to year.
Okay.
But the most it can be is at the end of that term of that tax commissioner,
So if someone has a 3-year contract,
right?
the way I read this line is that if they have a 3-year contract until 2025,
Now, yes, sir.
this bill would change that, they would have to change that contract at the end of
End
this
that
year.
At the end of that current contract that they're working under now. It says present contract,
Yeah, I think the word year is throwing me off there.
okay?
Contract year. A contract year versus contract term.
What, do you have language you're looking at that you would want to change that to? Let me, I'm still right here.
A year to term.
And so we're saying the terms can't be more than 4 years.
Well, you might get a new tax commissioner after the 4th year, so they couldn't be bound to that contract if there's a new tax commissioner coming in.
Okay, but what if we don't get one? What happens?
Then they would still have to execute a new contract every 4
Okay.
years. Yeah.
All right, let me make sure I'm.
Yeah, my only concern is just
I mean, I
coming
would,
in the middle of a contract.
I'd refer to leg counsel and see what they,
I mean, we could also say the current term of office or something.
Good.
Maybe that would
that would probably.
cover it. All right, Senator, I can't remember who was first over there. Senator Beach.
If I'd like to make a motion on line 105 to strike the word year and replace with term. Period. That's it. That's it.
So that term could be what?
It could be a
20
4-year term.
Well, I mean, but is it 20 years possibly, or?
It's whatever the term of the contract is that's been approved by the county commission and the people involved.
I'm wondering, I want to talk with Ledge Council and make sure we don't make a loophole that has happened before on these things.
Well, that's my motion.
Okay. We've got a motion and a second, but we haven't even had a motion to hear the bill yet, have we? So don't we have to do that first? So we got to do that first. Senator Tillery.
I feel like now my comments don't really even matter.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I was just gonna point out, I think we sent a bill to the House about probate judges on something matter. You aware of that one, Representative Coggins?
About probate judges.
Something with
and-
fees.
And fees, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Do you know if the House has moved on it yet?
It's in committee Tuesday
Thank you
in
for letting me know.
judiciary.
I guess if the Senate was trying to play games, they probably would have amended that bill under your bill, wouldn't they?
Yes, sir.
So I'm just glad to be a part of a body that didn't do that. And I just wanted to.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. All right, I think I want to make sure abundantly clear we get the right language. We had to do this
Okay.
on a bill the other day, so we'll probably stop right now on the
Okay.
hearing and make sure we've got that language right, because
I
it
agree.
certainly happened before.
I agree.
Not under my watch, but it could, so.
Okay, thank you
All
very
right,
much.
thanks for being here.
Yes, sir.
All right, Representative Newton, patiently waiting there. If y'all wouldn't send me so many bills, you know.
You're doing great work, sir.
I'm only second to Senator Strickland. He did get more bills to his committee than I did, but I'm second in number of bills that were sent over.
Well, I'm bringing for you a bill that I think can be meaningful. It's House Bill 308, LC 432609. It continues a program that's been successful in Georgia of getting helping our healthcare workforce really grow and get the training they need. As many of you know, nurse practitioners, PAs, and physicians and dentists all have two parts to their training. There's a didactic or a classroom piece, and then there's a clinical piece where you're taking care of actual patients. Much of this happens in our major medical centers where you get the tertiary care and the subspecialties, but a lot of what we need often is someone to help train them in other areas outside of a hospital. So for the past several years, we've had a preceptor tax credit program A preceptor is really a licensed clinician who's willing to take on, typically for a month at a time, a medical student, a PA student, or a nurse practitioner student, and allow them to learn under a supervision to learn how to take care of patients in an outpatient setting typically, but it can also be surgical patients in a surgery, in an operating room. So it's proven to be an evidence-based benefit to training students this way. It is not just on-the-job training, it's actually supervised clinical training, often has a class at the, a test at the end of the 4 to 6 week rotation. What our current preceptor tax credit does, it allows $1,000 credit for physicians who are willing to take a med student, nurse practitioner, or PA student, or for a nurse practitioner or PA, it allows them $750 for a month-long rotation as a tax credit if they take a nurse practitioner or PA student, or anesthesia assistant student. What this bill does, number one, it continues the program. The program is due to end in 2023. That's important because we have dramatically increased our medical training in all those fields. We have medical schools in Mercer and Macon, Savannah, and now Columbus. We have PCOM in Swanee and now in Moultrie with a new campus. Emory University, of course, Morehouse University, and then the state's own Medical College of Georgia, which has diverse campuses, including in Athens, Augusta, and other areas. So a lot of the tertiary care training can go on at those locations, but all those programs need to be able to get the medical students, plus their nurse practitioner and PA students out into the community to get adequate training. So we have this tax credit program. It does allow, as I said, licensed clinicians to take under their wing for a month at a time a student. It does limit them to a maximum of 10 a year. It does limit them to 10 a year, and that you can't carry this tax credit forward, you can't sell it, and you can't use it for any prior year's taxes. There are guardrails around it. What House Bill 308 also does, though, previously the program, or currently the program says $750 for the first 3 months, and the next 7 or $1,000, and then for PAs and nurse practitioner preceptors, it's $500 for 3 months, and then the next 7 months is $750. This program kind of streamlines that to where it's a flat $1,000 tax credit per month for physicians and $750 for 10 months. This has proven to be a crucial program. I think one of the other things this does, it does add, in addition to extending the expiration date to 2028 from 2023, it also allows dental students who need to train in outside of the tertiary care areas. It allows dental students to also be included in the same way that medical students, nurse practitioner, and PA students. I know our universities have talked about how crucial this is to being able to train the healthcare workers of tomorrow. We've certainly talked about Georgia being 40th in the nation in number of doctors per capita. All the healthcare workers in their various roles are crucial, and this is an important piece. I think the fiscal note on that adjustment of $250 of the not doing $750 for 3 months and then $1,000. I think the fiscal note was between $255,000 and $310,000 a year. These are programs that the medical students would have to pay faculty somewhere to do if it was not for licensed clinicians who are willing to do it, much of which is in our rural areas. So I'm excited to actually to continue the program, number one, and to allow the streamlining and allow the expansion to include the dental students who need to do clinical training as well.
One comment. Well, first of all, I'm trying to remember the amount, because I don't know if we'd looked for a fiscal note, but I remember seeing a budget, how much it'd been. Seemed like it was a couple of million, or.
Oh, as far as how much it has been?
Has been.
Oh, I'm sorry. 2.2. I will say that there are a number of clinicians who do this who don't really bother to turn it in on their tax, because we get a lot more rotations than just maybe a 25% bonus over what we actually give credit for. But $2.2 million a year is the estimate of what it cost the most recent year.
Right, and I, as probably you do, I train people all the time, and I've never done this. I kind of feel like it's my responsibility. Unfortunately, there's people that can't find places to train in right now, and
well, they are in dire need of training. I know that a lot of our international schools, Caribbean and others were actually, before we did this, they were taking up all those that were willing to do some training, and this was I think a carefully calculated way Georgia could meet that demand, keep the availability for Georgia students. By the way, this is only Georgia schools, students in school in Georgia. If they're doing a precept, or somebody from out of state that was precepting in Augusta wouldn't qualify. I don't actually do this myself. I've had this other part-time job, so I'm not around enough. But I do know and have friends who do this, and it's a very valuable piece of getting the education that our students need.
Well, a fiscal note is one thing, but a cap is another, so we do need to have a cap on this program, and I don't see one on there. And the other thing is a sunset. I see section 2, I know there was a sunset on the O program, and I guess you've got up there on the new one, 2028.
2028, yes, sir.
Yeah, so I've had a request from, administrative request, I guess I'll say that we've got a 26 sunset on that, and with the major study going forward, that we should apply that to
Instead of
everything,
line
but-
78 that says 2028, you'd
but
like to change that?
Yeah, that we need to go to 26, because we've got a major study going on, and we're gonna have some shorter sunsets till we get through that
That's
study.
certainly very rational and logical, and I certainly would consider that a friendly change.
All right, I don't know what a reasonable cap would be. It seems like maybe all right, what number are you? Okay, 3, okay. I
Thank
know
you,
I've
Mr.
got some
Chairman.
other questions, but go ahead.
Are these residents, or there's somebody beyond their residency training?
No, sir. Residence and graduate medical education is different. This is all it's not bachelor level. It is graduate school, but it is not GME or graduate medical education. That's residencies. Those are they're completely under a different program that we do some for the appropriations. Most of it's through CMS and and federal funding to the hospitals that have residencies. These are medical students, nurse practitioner students, PA students, and occasionally there'll be some, if this passes, some dental students that can use this as well, or at least those that are training those sets of Georgia-based students. So no residents are involved in this.
So they're just following you around on the job, or watching what you do, or what the dentist does now?
People I'm talked to, that these students get some valuable rotation. I know one in obstetrics and family medicine and general surgery. They follow the physician around, and yes, they do follow him, but they're unlike in a major medical center in Augusta or Atlanta or Macon or Columbus. Instead of being 7th in line after the senior resident, the 3rd-year resident, the 2nd-year resident, the intern, and then the medical student, they're actually side by side with the physician, often in a place that has no residency programs involved. And so it's a one-on-one level of level of training that you really can't get, even as good as our medical schools and nurse practitioner and PA schools are. You need the option to do these preceptorships to really find out what it's like. And I can tell you an additional advantage is many of these are outside of our major medical center areas. There is a list, I think you may have gotten, of a matrix of all the number into different counties that have utilized this. It does get a lot of our students out into rural Georgia and to see what it's like to practice outside of a major city or community, and has proven to be pretty valuable for that too.
And they may be scrubbed in with a surgeon, you know, with me. There may be intubations, putting in arterial lines, central lines, things like that under supervision. People have to learn, and I'm getting old, and I want them to take care of me, so I work hard to train them up all I can. I think Senator Estevez was next, if you want.
I was just gonna comment to that question. It's great for the clinicians that's being trained, but it's work on the trainer.
It is.
Because
It does slow. These are typically busy practices, and I know 10 rotations at 1,000 is important, but at the same on a tax credit. But it's a little bit more of a thank you for taking an entire month and slowing down some efficiencies sometimes. But that's a good length of time that you can actually learn how someone runs, whether it's a rural practice or a suburban practice. You can really learn what it's like to be a physician in that specialty. It's really, priceless in a lot of ways, but it's very important and valuable for the student.
Senator Albers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Newton, do you know what year this started?
I believe the tax credit, we did a tax deduction at one point several years back. I believe it was in 2019. Jay Powell, I think, may have had some work on it initially.
Okay, a follow-up question if I could. And I know you mentioned over there on the side, 2.2 million for last year. Do we know what it was, you know, the last many years prior, just to get an idea of what type of trajectory?
2019, we're in the midst of obviously 2022,
Okay.
so we don't have that.
I have a list, I guess 2018 said 2.25, 2019 2.8, then down in 2020 went down to 2.39, in 2021, I'm sorry, it was 3.3 million. The amount awarded, go
Why don't we
ahead.
have her sit down, introduce herself, and
Sure.
I'm Denise Cornegay, and I'm the director of the statewide AHEC, and we administer this program. And thank you very much for your support in the past. We certify on behalf of all the academic institutions in Georgia that rotations actually occurred. And then we send a letter to all of the preceptors in the state who have taken students, because all the programs report to us. And then we send a letter to them, and they have to sign an attestation that they meet the eligibility. One of the things on eligibility is you cannot receive compensation from any source for any student for teaching if you take this. So if you're getting paid by the offshore schools, you can't take this state tax credit. Because the reason for this bill, and I think this is an important nuance, was that we are trying to protect the Georgia health professions programs who cannot graduate our own state students if they can't find these training sites. And we can't do all the training in the hospitals. So we might certify, and I think this year it's like 3.8 is what we're looking at. But not all of the people use that. So we work with the Department of Revenue, who then tells us after the tax filings who actually claimed the tax credit and filed that. So we might certify 3.8, but last year they actually claimed 2.1. Does that help?
yes, that helps a lot. So from a cap perspective, based on a little jungle math, the addition of dentists, I think Representative Newton said it was somewhere between $255,000 and $310,000. So a $2.5 million cap would probably be right at the very bottom. And if you want a little buffer, maybe a $3 million cap would achieve what you're trying to get
I
done.
think $3 million would be wonderful.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Senator Warwick.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chair, I don't see anywhere in here, it's been referenced by the author several times, but there's nothing that incents this in particular in rural settings. Isn't that right?
If I could answer that.
Go ahead.
Do you mind? As the representative was sharing, we can't do all this training in the cities. Even if we wanted to, it can't happen. So one of the things that my program, the AHEC, does is we locate housing around the state. And so we try to find these areas in rural communities that we have people willing to take students for training, and we provide housing for the students, because the students, that's the biggest barrier to getting them off campus is, how do you tell someone you need to go to Vidalia for 4 weeks and you don't even know where Vidalia is or how to find an apartment, and you're still paying your rent in Augusta? So we, through the AHECs, really try to incentivize opening more and more of these rural practices to take students by providing the housing in that area.
But this is not, that, so you're working with that issue in those settings where housing is
Right.
a challenge. But this preceptorships could ostensibly all occur in urban and suburban
A large
settings.
number do, and that's still okay, because these students have to complete these rotations. And so, like, for example, in Atlanta, what we really try to focus on is the FQHCs and providers who are taking, these are who we're recruiting, providers who are taking more Medicaid patients and serving health disparity populations. So it's not intended to be a boon for urban physicians and providers, although they do benefit. We really do work to try to get it more out so that we're spreading
If
this
I could,
out.
a second question.
Yeah, quickly, 'cause we're
Federally qualified health centers, they're, provide a wealth of, they're just invaluable in communities across the state. And maybe going forward, thinking of how to particularly encourage and access, and that's for another day, but to bring them in really.
Y'all gave us money last year, and we've opened up 4 new housing sections across the state, specific to FQHCs, to provide.
All right,
housing
we need to
specific
move
there.
on. We're running out of time. So, if there's a motion to be made and an amendment, we can look at that, and then we can either have a vote or not if the committee's not comfortable. Senator Estevez, you,
I'll make a motion, do pass.
okay, we got a motion to pass. Is there a second? Second by Senator Rhett. He beat you on that. And Senator Albers,
All right, I've got 2 amendments. The first amendment will be on line 78, striking 2028 and replacing it with 2026, and then beginning a new letter I below that, and it will say the following. The aggregate amount of tax credits allowed pursuant to this code section shall not exceed $3 million for any calendar year. Each year, any individual believes that they will be eligible for such tax credit will be allowed by this code section may apply to the commissioner for pre-approval to claim such tax credit. Such individuals shall file the application in the manner and method established by the commissioner, which shall be required that each certified to the commissioner that they are a certified medical preceptor.
and that's actually sort of standard language on pre-qualifying that we've got in another one. So I think that should be okay.
It would apply to everybody here, yes.
Everybody under the bill.
It just says 2 things, so it changes the term back 2 years, and it says that then they would, you obviously know what's there, but then they would have to proactively apply to get it.
Mind if I ask one question regarding that, if Mr. Chairman? One of the challenges might be is when people are trying to get certified, we had $3.5 million that was certified, even though it only ended up being 2.2 that were turned in and collected. I'm curious, would the 3 million require us to cut off the number that can sign up? Like, I think in 2021, there were 974 that signed up for various numbers of rotations. I'm wondering, would the department have to?
Well, that I guess the certification is done by the DOR, is that correct?
No,
So
we do the certification at AU through the statewide AU.
Okay.
And then we give the information to DOR on who we certified, and then they track who claimed it.
And you're adding dental with this bill.
Yeah.
Right.
Do I think I think the question I asked a minute ago, you said 3 million was the right
I'm
number.
comfortable with 3 million.
So we need to probably either work with that or move on at this point.
3 million is
think.
fine.
Got a second by Senator Cowser. Any other discussion? So first of all, we need to vote on the amendment. We've got a motion, a second on the amendment. All in favor, raise your hand. All right. Sounds unanimous. Now the main motion itself. All those in favor? Unanimous again. Thank you very much, Representative Newton.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you have a Senate sponsor over here?
Gonna ask the chairman.
Okay, I'll see what I can do with it. That sounds good.
You're the most qualified, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Drenner, I believe, is here. So, this is about the way the taxes are in DeKalb County, specific issue. I think you're trying to change from the way you are to the way all other counties are. Is that correct, or is that?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. We're just seeking to eliminate line 64 to 75 in House Bill 431, LC number 472212. And in removing that language, that just allows DeKalb to fully utilize its SPLOST to be able to use it on libraries and parks, basically, like all the other counties in the state.
So right now, you've got a 4% state tax. I guess you've got a local option like everybody else. And then you might have an e-SPLOST, a school SPLOST.
Correct.
So we're up to 6. So what else do you have right now?
MARTA.
MARTA 7, and then this. So right now, your SPOS has some restrictions on it that you're saying other counties don't have. Is that?
That's correct, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
All right. Any questions of the committee? Senator Albers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Representative, for bringing this forward. I just texting a former colleague of ours because I remember us working on this a few years ago, and for some reason, I think we put this in intentionally for some specific reason. Can you shed some light on that while I wait for his response?
I believe that the reason that the split was put in was to focus on transportation initially.
So in this case, you'd, by diverting some of those funds from transportation to other things?
Well, just broaden the pool. Transportation would still be an important consideration, but allow the public to have some input into the process.
All right, Senator Cowser, is that number
Thank you.
3 there?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm reading through it kind of rapidly. I don't see where this applies just to DeKalb. It looks like it applies statewide. It's just DeKalb is the only one that's taxing
just
folks that much, or what?
Yes, it's just a cab, and I believe that the reason it just applies to DeKalb is DeKalb is the only county that has a MARTA tax. Part 2 of Article 2 of this. Go ahead, Dan.
Allowed DeKalb to charge extra tax for MARTA, and now you want to be able to go back. I mean, will this take you to 8.5%?
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
I don't think this increases the tax.
No,
does
it does not. So it just strikes the restriction. So, Senator, if you look at the end of line 65 and 66, where it says pursuant to Part 2 of Article 2A, that is the DeKalb County E-Host, Equalized Homestead Option Sales Tax, so that this restriction only applied to DeKalb. So DeKalb already has a SPLOST, but this just allows the SPLOST to be spent on the same items as every other county in the state. Before, it was restricted for that Part 2 of Article 2A, which is only DeKalb County.
All right, Senator Albers.
So take us through again, I think Senator Cowser was asking this, of all the different SPOS you have today and what rate you're at.
So it's at 8%. So the bill that was passed several years ago allowed DeKalb County to create what's called an E-Host, an Equalized Homestead Exemption, and that rolled back, that penny is used to roll back property taxes.
I think Senator Miller passed that, if I'm correct.
You're correct. And so the other thing that went along with that was kind of the deal, that DeKalb would go to 8% would be able to issue a SPLOST if they also did the E-Host. So the E-Host and SPLOST are connected in DeKalb. One has to be in place for the other. So if the SPLOST went away, the E-Host would go away, and vice versa.
Okay, I just think there was legitimate reason why this was put in, and I would like to get more answers from some of those folks of why they did it. I just can't recall why we did it before we move forward too quick. So.
Senator Estevez.
Can you, and maybe I missed this, and I see the CEO here. Can you talk about the practical implications of removing this restriction? How would it benefit DeKalb residents?
If you want to come up, you're welcome to.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. Well, we negotiated, Senator Albers. I worked very closely with Senator Millar on this bill 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And of course, at the end of the day, and you worked with him as well, he and I have continued to talk. One of the things, number one, the most, I think, important aspect of this bill is the E-Host. We're generating $600 million in ad valorem tax relief for DeKalb County ad valorem taxpayers, the only county in Georgia that does that. And this bill will just continue the E-Host for an additional 6 years. The only thing we're really seeking to do is to expand the number of capital investments that we can make. During the last now 6 years, we've resurfaced over 250 miles of the worst streets and roads in DeKalb County, Georgia. We're going to continue to focus on that, but we also need to make investments in parks, senior centers, and libraries as well, because that's so important to protecting the quality of life in any county, and particularly in DeKalb. We're one of the last counties to get a SPLOST in the state of Georgia, but we were able to have right now the full support of all 11 mayors and municipal leaders, county, north, south, east, and west. It passed with over 70% of the vote, and we expect an even higher percentage if we're getting a chance to vote on it again.
And thank you. Great to see you, Mr. CEO. It's a
Thank you,
pleasure.
Senator.
Always enjoyed working with you, and thank you for the great work you're doing in DeKalb County. I just want to get some background information just to make sure that what we did in the past, there's not something we're missing for connecting the dots into the future. Thank you.
No problem at all. I think Senator Millar was concerned about whether or not the appropriate investments would be made. This has been a SPLOST professionally run, no questions about integrity of the appropriations, and we've been very successful. And I think Senator would speak to that if you get a chance, if you're reaching out to him.
I'm trying to get him right now. Thank you.
Yep. He's been out of town. He's back now, so he should be reachable.
Senator Tillery.
Thank you. I'm just reading through this and making sure I'm seeing it right. I heard the mention about transportation and that the SPLOST was limited to transportation, but am I reading right on line 61? It's part of the stricken language that it could be used for transportation, or on line 69 for public safety facilities, or for capital outlay, at least repair of capital outlay, even right now?
That's correct, Senator. It was 85-15. 85% of the proceeds from the SPLOST would be transportation and/or public safety and so forth. We purchased 100 police cruisers. That was one of the first investments we made. We purchased 10 rapid response vehicles. We recognized that 85% of the responses with fire rescue were non-fire related. So we've now purchased rapid response vehicles manned by EMTs that go to non-fire. Obviously, not sending a ladder truck saves money and or resources. So those are some of the investments we made, as well as in equipment.
All right, so, you've got some restrictions on this that, now when you say e-host, we're talking about educational, or are you talking about, are you using another term? I'm trying to make sure I got all your taxes straight.
Well, it's the equalized.
Equalized, okay,
So
not
it's really
educational.
all 100% of the e-hosts, which over 6 years is about $600 million, must be used to offset ad valorem tax liability for those who own homes in DeKalb County, Georgia. So you have an e-host and then a SPLOST, and they're
Okay.
tied together. If one ceases to exist, the other one ceases to exist. And we definitely don't want to lose $600 million in tax relief.
Now, is there educational SPLOST too?
The school district, yes, sir.
Yeah, okay.
School district has one.
All right. I've got a little confusion on this, so we'll probably just have to hold and try to do this again on Monday, make sure everybody's clear on the numbers on that. So, apologize, we can't move forward right now, but, I just, out of abundance of caution, want to make sure. We appreciate you coming forward, and we will, look at this again.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
All
you.
right.
All right. Thank you, Senator.
We've got, let's see, I believe it's Representative Jackson was next. Tell us your bill number you're working from.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. House Bill 82, and I'm working from LC 432805S.
Okay. Looked like there was some confusion in finding them. Let me make sure everybody's got a copy of that. Give us just a second here. Yeah, we're gonna, it was a late summary. He didn't get it printed off. He's gonna work on that, trying to get it printed out. So, while we're getting that, go ahead with your bill. That's probably supposed to be my copy, because I didn't get it printed off, but anyway. Go ahead and present it. We're gonna work on a summary for the
Okay,
members.
thank
In
you,
the
sir.
meantime, we're about to run out of time here.
This is a rural physician tax credit. It's a recruiting tool for rural communities to entice or to recruit rural physicians in our communities. And it also includes dentists. It's a state income tax credit of $5,000 for rural physicians. There was some new language included in there by the Department of Revenue, and I believe the chairman knows about it. On line 76, I believe it is.
So this was, and we'll let them speak to that pretty quickly. This does have a cap of $2 million.
Yes, sir.
On line 76 in there.
It does. It has a cap of $2 million.
And this has been a credit, but you're making a little bit of a change. Is that correct?
Making a little bit of a
The
change.
Current credit, okay.
Exactly.
Go ahead and explain what your program is.
Okay, and it defines a rural community in line 49. A rural county means a county in the state that has a population of less than 50,000. Also, it added new language in there for military personnel because of communities like Hinesville down in Liberty County. It says on line 49, a rural county means a county in the state that has a population of less than 50,000. Provided have that for such counties on line 51, which contain a military base or installation, the military personnel and their dependents living in such county shall be excluded from the total population of such county for purpose of this definition. That was because of Liberty County and the military base down there at Fort Stewart.
All right,
It's
and if DOR wants to speak to the changes at this point, the reason we did that, if you wanna come on up, Austin.
Austin Gibbons with the Department of Revenue. We worked with Representative Jackson and Chairman Huffstetler to move this to a pre-approval credit. That just helps with administration.
All right,
Quick question, if I could.
go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Jackson, for this bill, and this could go to either you or Mr. Gibbons. It looks like we're sunsetting the old program, obviously, and creating the new. I do not see a sunset on this in Section 3.
2028 would be the sunset for it.
I think that is the old program that's ending, and then you're beginning a new program. Because you're gonna add a new code section 48-7-29.26.
That's the way I'm reading it too with the
At which
vice
point I
chair.
wouldn't have a sunset.
Excuse me, could you say that again, sir?
So if you look at the bill currently, you
Mm-hmm.
are eliminating in the end of 5 years the old program. So on
Correct.
line 40, it sunsets on December 31st, 2028. You create a new section, which is 48-7-29-26, which I believe is new. And that new section now does not have a sunset.
We can correct that then. We meant for the sunset to be 2028.
Okay, and I think what we'd like to do, Representative Jackson, to keep it consistent with everything else we've done today, because we're gonna be measuring things to make that 2026, because that's what we've done on the other two bills prior in this committee today.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll make that when we get to that appropriate time later.
Okay, any other questions from the committee? Did you have a question, Senator Estevez?
I did. I just wanted to make sure I was clear on this. So if you were currently a rural physician, to Senator Dalbert's point, Section 1 would apply. And if you're a future rural physician, then Section 2 would apply.
Correct.
All right, the summaries are being passed out, but we did make some changes here, and knew today we had to look at some sunsets on some things. So those are them. So first, I guess I don't see any other questions. Is there a motion on the main bill itself?
You pass.
Got a motion? Second by Senator Estevez, motion by Senator Albers.
Amendment.
And now we've got, amendment being offered by Senator Albers.
On line 96, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to amend this bill. After the 2024 period, it will say this code section shall stand repealed on December 31, 2026 period.
All right, is there a second to that? Second by Senator Eccles. All right, we'll vote on the amendment. If there's no other discussion, all in favor of the amendment, raise your hand. All right, looks unanimous. Now we're back to the main motion. All in favor of passing this out, raise your hand. All those opposed? Did you vote, Senator Cowles? Okay, looks like it's unanimous. You got your bill out.
Thank you, sir.
We have to perfect it in the Senate, but, you know, we're glad to
That's
have you over.
fine.
All right, I would like to try to get one more in if the committee's willing.
Thank you.
Who is your Senate sponsor on this, too?
Senator Barnes, Max Burns.
Max Burns?
Max
Okay.
Burns.
Okay. All right, I know we've got some people that came here on 264. Representative Smith, if you want to come forward. And I hope, I've been in meetings 1, 2, 3, 4 today, so I haven't had a lot of time to communicate. But we did make a couple of changes over here.
Yes, sir.
Section 1 appeared to me from looking at it that if you appealed, even though you didn't show up, even though you didn't even file a paperwork, that you had a 3-year freeze, and it just seemed like a loophole that somebody could get for doing nothing. So we've taken that section out. And then the other change we made is I've been hearing, and I was a county commissioner for 8 years back in another life. That was 99 to 2006. But we've been hearing about difficulty of getting hearing officers, and that there's a smaller and smaller pool, and they're raising their rates up. So we have added to that language that CPAs could also qualify to do that, which I think might be helpful as well. So this bill, I'll let you explain the rest of it now to the committee.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. I guess I will. First comment came to mind, that loophole, that was a pretty good loophole for the taxpayer, I guess you could say. So anyway, that's all I'll say about that. The tax assessors and the clerks got together. I was asked to carry the bill. They were trying to balance the time that's spent in that 180-day period when there's an appeal to the taxes, and that's what they did. They went and sat down and worked out a time balance between the hearing officer and tax assessors. It's what the main part of the bill is. And I'll try to answer any questions that you have.
Yeah, I know we've had some backlogs, and I think that helps, but also I think letting some more people be hearing officers will help that are
yes, sir.
qualified to look at numbers.
That's
Senator Orrock.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Smith, good to see you. At some point, and maybe it's an earlier version, of reducing the time that a taxpayer had to respond from what was it, 30 days to 15 days?
Is there a line in there that we can reference?
I was looking at it as we spoke. I don't see it. Yeah.
Okay, Senator Estevez thinks he can clarify that issue, so.
Yeah. If you look on page 8 and 9, lines 191, 194, 203 and 204, it reduces the amount of time that a taxpayer has for notice and responding to 15 days, which with today's mail, we can, it's problematic.
Can I ask first, which LC are we working off of?
This is LC, and let me make sure you've got a copy of it, 43-2800S.
No,
That
sir.
part would be the same in either bill. The only changes were the two I talked about, section 1 not
Right.
being there, so your numbering is going to be off, but we'll get it to you right now.
Okay, that'd be great. Appreciate it. I got one. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Committee's got some concerns about 15 days being too short, with it being mailed. Senator Albers want to make a comment.
Yeah, and by the way, Chairman Smith, I love what you're doing here. I think it's a fantastic idea, very supportive. I have had things in the last 2 years consistently from here at the Capitol to Roswell, Georgia, take a month to get there, just because the U.S. Postal Service is seemingly in chaos.
Yes,
that
sir.
would be my only concern for the timing, along with Senator Estevez.
And a question there too, that the times that they work with the assessors and the clerks, and they're working in that 180-day period, those numbers need to be allotted equally so that it comes up to 180 days. Will that affect that? That would be my question. I'm not
A good question.
I'm not a tax assessor or a clerk, so just want to make sure that, the numbers don't throw anything else off.
Mm-hmm. So we've cut that down from, well, go ahead, Senator Estevez.
I had a comment on something else.
Okay, so we've gone down from the County Board of Assessors no more than 90 to 60 days, and on these we've gone from 30 to 15. And I think then if they don't respond within, used to be 180 days, it's down to 90 days after receiving the notice of appeal. I think all that's reasonable. I just think the 15 days may be a problem.
Yes,
from what I'm hearing. So if you're amenable to taking out where we changed it from 30 to 15 days, we might get a vote out on this.
Yes, sir.
Senator Estevez, you had a different thing.
Yeah, I was just going to comment. I don't know whether it's for this bill or a future bill, if we wanted to be taxpayer friendly, which I appreciate your initial comment. Most taxpayers don't know about the fact that when you go through the appeals process, there's a freeze at the end. And including in the no change notice in particular, the no change notices, if they had some language in there that could direct taxpayers to the code section that talks about the 2 or 3 year tax freeze, I think that would actually be taxpayer friendly,
All right.
because a lot of taxpayers receive that no change notice and they're like, oh, well, I lost, nothing else to do, when in fact they can continue down the process. So that's a suggestion there.
Thank you.
All right. So the substitute, again, section 1 was removed. It just seemed somewhat of a loophole. And the CPAs were added as they could also be, qualified to be hearing these, to hopefully get some more. The last one, I think, is the 15 days. And so if somebody wants to, if the committee's ready, if somebody wants to make a motion to approve this, then look at the 15 days and take that out and go back to the 30. We're at that point. We've got a motion by Senator Redd, a second by Senator Albers. Now we're open for amendments.
Can I make an amendment, Mr. Chairman?
Certainly.
On line 191, we will strike 15 and unstrike on line 190, 30. And they will do the exact same thing on line 194. We'll strike 15 and unstrike 30. We'll do the exact same thing again on line 203 by unstriking 30 and striking 15, and on 04, again, unstriking 30 and striking 15.
So we've got an amendment offered. Is there a second to the amendment? Second by Senator Orrock. So let's vote on the amendment first. Unless there's any other discussion, all in favor of the amendment, raise your hand. Unanimous, so the main bill's back on the floor. All in favor of passing LC 43-2800S, raise your hand. Looks like we're unanimous on that. Motion carries. So, and your sponsor?
Senator Hickman.
Okay.
Senator, yes, sir.
Picked a CPA to do it, okay?
Yes, sir. Good move.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman,
members of the committee.
All right, and back on another bill, I think Senator Albers had found some information out if we want to try to
Yes, getting
clear
back
the docket
to
on that.
431, we cleared up all the questions and confusion on that bill. I think it's ready to go, and I'd like to make a motion, do pass HB 431.
We got a motion and a second, so if we pass it without the representative here, I don't guess she'll complain, will she? All right. All right, motion and second. Any other discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Unanimously passed. Okay, we got as far as we could. This is only my third meeting in 7 years. It's gone over an hour. I apologize. But we've got 2 more chances next week. Meeting adjourned.